All right, so in the previous video we were looking at how to use mongoose to insert create new instances of objects in a database, right? And currently I have commented it out, right? So instead, let's play around with being able to retrieve things from the database, right? Again, it's a good practice to hide all the actual data access, right, in a dedicated function, right, that would allow us to reuse it outside from here, right? So you would have something like find all blog posts, right? And so that would mean that we want to retrieve all the blog posts, right? Not a particular blog post, but all of them. Right? Again, trying to implement all the various CRUD operations. And to do that, we can use the block model, the find method. The find method it has exactly the same syntax as we would have when we type it at the command line in the Mongo client, right? And just like the create function, right? All these functions have the two different ways that you can use them. Either with a callback, right? You can provide a function here, right, which will call back, retrieve, give you all those documents, either the error or all the documents, right? Then you can do a console here, console log docs, right? If we call this function, we invoke it. Let's run it here from the command line. Right, notice that it comes back with the array of all the objects, right? All the objects that we had stored. Right, notice the square bracket determining that this is an array, and the curly bracket for each one of the objects that we have currently inserted. Yes? Right? So we did this programmatically as opposed to doing it at the command line. So this docs, that's why I use the plural there, meaning that it actually returns all the objects, not just one of them. Or you can also provide that you want to retrieve just one of the objects, right? And here you can put a filter, like a where clause, right, that has to match that particular criteria. So for instance, you can say, I want the blog post whose title is that name, right? But then it would not be an appropriate name for this function, right? Because the whole point of this is that I want all of them, right? So let's remove that. I do want all of them. And again, it could either be like this. Well, certainly not like that. Return docs, right? Because again, this is an asynchronous communication. So you would not expect to be able to retrieve all the posts here like that, right? Because what this is going to return, right, it would be, if this returns anything, right, it returns anything, it would be a promise, right? It does not return the actual instances, right? So again, all these functions have either a callback syntax or a return, right? Where you can return a promise that at some point I'll come back to you with the values, right? So you need to use that programming style where you use the then nomenclature as opposed to assigning it to a variable. So in here, you can be guaranteed that you'll get the response from the database. In this case, it would be the blog posts, right? And you can either display them or assign them to a local variable or whatever it is that you want to do. Okay, all right. So if we run this, right, there they are, right there are the arrays. Make sense? Okay. So there's the finder method. Again, it's a higher level abstraction for our API, exposing access to the data through this well vetted set of functions, right? That can hide the fact that underneath we are using mongoose to access the database. Right. All right. So let's comment that. Let's put it down here. Let's create yet another finder method, a very common one to implement. is at least those two. Find all the instances, and then find blog post by ID, right? Where you have here a post ID. Okay, so that's also a very common one. So to do that, we can use the blog model again, the same one, but provide a filter, right, where we can say that we don't want all of them. We only want the ones whose ID matches the post ID. Okay, right? So we can then call it find blog post by ID, and we can provide an ID of one of these. So let's grab this one right here, right? The 345. Let's pass that as a string, right? And this will come back as a then function, and this presumably will be just that one blog post. Console log blog post. Okay, so let's run that. And then, so now it just returns that one. Yes? But notice that it returns one, but it's still an array. See that? So that's somewhat inconvenient, right? I mean, if we know that this is a unique identifier that we want to find it, we know there's only one of them, right? So for that, blog post ID, the finder methods. These finder methods, this is really the only one that is implemented, but the API provides several syntactic sugar versions, right? That allows you to either, if you know there's only one, right, it will unwrap the array and return the first instance. Okay, so that works if you know there's only one, especially if you're retrieving it by a different unique identifier. Right, like username or something, right? And you know there's only one, you can use that. So if you run that, notice that it returns just that object. See that without the array, right? Another syntactic sugar one that encapsulates this use case, which is very common, right? Retrieving something by its ID, by its primary key. There's another one called find by ID, right? That allows you to just pass in the value without the underscore ID equals. Yes? Right? Again, another syntactic sugar. Right? So let's, if you run it, right, it behaves exactly the same, right? It just returns that first one. Everybody okay? Right? Now, you can provide any number of finder methods that would be convenient for you. Right, so certainly we can search by many other ways, right? We can say function find blog post by title, right? So this would be a title, and so we can filter find, right, and then have here filter by title. So this would be the title variable, right? So here you could do a function. You can call this, So this would be find blog by title, and pass in some title. Let's see, what title do we have here? Let's grab post 456, right? And let's call that, and that's going to return a promise. Let's copy that from here. And we don't know if there could be several blog posts with the same title. So the implementation, we're still going to use find because it's not a unique identifier, right? So there could be more than one post with the same title, maybe, right? So if we run that, it just returns that one as an array, right? For now, there's only one, but there might be more than one. Everybody okay? Okay, so let's now play around with something else. Let's comment this out. I'll leave those for your perusal at some later on. How about being able to update something, right? So for instance, update blog post. Now, the update functions, typically, the API should be, give me a unique identifier, right? Usually the primary key, and then the new values that you want to update, right? So, for instance, let's update one of these. Let's see, where are they? Blog posts 789, right? So let's update this one. So we'll do it by ID. So we'll give it the ID that we want to update, and then presumably the values for the new values that we want to update. Yes. So for instance, we might want to change the title, or maybe the body. Let's just change the body. We'll have the body, and it used to be the body is 789. So maybe let's change it to, I don't know, something silly. Okay, just that. So and the return. Now the return from an update. Notice that this is also going to return a promise, right? But the promises that come back from inserting or updating. I'm sorry, no. Yeah, from updating, from inserting and deleting. If it's not a select, right? If you're not retrieving data, but if you only have the other two, insert, update, and delete, what you get back is not an object. What you get back is a status information, right? You get, meaning how many did you update, how many did you create, how many did you remove, right? So status information. So only the finder methods return actual data, right? All the other ones just return status, right? So this is just status information, some status, right, for the updates, right? And they're implemented as follows. So we say function update blog post. So let's copy that, right? So typically here we have the post ID. So this is the unique identifier, and then the new post. Right. So the new post contains a subset of all the titles, or maybe everything, right? If you're changing the title, the body, the creation, everything, right? If you're changing a whole bunch of things, and in here. You use the model, just like we've been doing so far, right? You get the block model, right? And you use the update function, right? The first argument is, like we saw earlier, is the ID that uniquely identifies, right? Or a predicate. So it's a predicate where you can exactly tell me which element, which document do you want to update, right? In our case, most of the cases we're going to do it all by primary key. Right? You're going to give me the ID. Here's a post ID, and then here's what we want to change. Right? So it might be that we want to allow you to change everything, or maybe certain things not. Maybe maybe you can't change the date that it was created. Right? Maybe you can change the date that it was updated. Right? But you can't change the date that it was created. Maybe for auditing purposes, we don't allow you to change certain things. Yes? Right? So here, typically, you would have a just like you have $set in the Mongo client, right? Here you also have the set command, right? Mongoose uses the same syntax that you would use in the manual operation, and in here you can choose that you want to update certain things but not others, right? So you might say, yes, I will allow you to change the title, right? From the new post.title, right? Or and I will allow you to change the body, new post body. Yes, okay. Or notice that what we're creating here is what? We're creating a new object instance that has exactly the same fields, right? With the correct schema. Yes. But new values, right? But we already have an object that has those fields, those values. Yes? New post. New post has those fields and the new values. So we could get lazy and just say new post. New post is already an object that has those fields and has the new values for those fields. Yes? And notice that we might pass an object that doesn't have all the fields, right? notice that here we're only updating the body. And indeed, what's set is going to update only the body, right? You would use this, obviously here you could put some logic, right, and create your own local instance, right, and have some logic that says, you know, I will ignore these fields, but I will allow you these other fields, right? And you can certainly do that, right? For instance, later on when we're updating the user, we won't allow you to update, for instance, a username. We won't allow you to do that. Okay, or if we're using the email as a primary key, we won't let you to update that either. Okay, so we might, right, intercept the object and massage it a little bit, right, before we actually update it in the database. Make sense? Okay, but here we're doing a a blind update of everything. Whatever you give us, that's what we're going to update. Okay. All right, so let's run this. And it died. I think we forgot to do a return. Let's try that again. All right, so notice that we came back as status information saying that there was one match and I did update one document. And indeed, we could, right after we do this, right, we could do a find, right, blog post by ID to see if it changed. Yes. Well, first we can check in the database if it changed. Let's see. Find pretty, and indeed it changed, right? Body 789, 789, 789. Yes, it did change. So our update function does work. For a fact, we know it works. So this over here, we could use our finder method to verify that it did work, right? So let's copy our then function, right? And we can see the new post that came back, so we can print it to see if it changed. Correct? So let's change our body here, right, and make it twice as long. Yes, right? So now there's 6 of them. So if we run this now, notice that it worked. We were lucky. It's not guaranteed that it would have worked. Yikes. So notice that the find method comes back with the updated value, right? But it's not guaranteed that it would have worked, right? What happens here is that this function is going out to the database, yes. And this function is going out to the database. Now they're both asynchronous communication, right? So so we're not guaranteed that that one is going to complete before the other one, right? The only thing that we're guaranteed is that in the then clause or the error, right? That definitely is going to execute after the operation has occurred. Okay. Same thing with the finder method, right? So these two are not guaranteed to execute sequentially like it seems like it has, right? It could be that sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Right? It depends on the speed of your network speed, on the server speed, right? So what you're creating here is a race condition, right? And I'm sure you're going to run into this, right? It says, well, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, okay? And these are the hardest problems to solve, right? When it's an intermittent problem that it works in development, but it doesn't work in production. How come, right? Or it works on my machine, it's not working in QA, right? And in QA is opening all these bugs and says, well, I can't reproduce it. It works fine on my machine. So it depends on the machine and the speed and whatnot. So we just have to be aware that here we're creating a race condition, right? That is not guaranteed that one will execute before the other. Here we got lucky that it is updating it before we can query it. So to guarantee, the only way we can actually guarantee is that we can put this inside over here, right? This finder will only find and retrieve this information after we are guaranteed that it has updated. Make sense? Right, so this is a guarantee that this will only find after the update has executed. Yes? Right? So we're nesting these things, and so we're complicating a little bit here because notice that whenever we need to synchronize asynchronous communication, right, we're going to have to do something like this, where one is nested inside of the other, right? And that's going to create code that it becomes harder and harder to read, right? So to fix this nesting of the code issue, right, is where promises comes to help, right? So promises allows you to fix this nesting of the code issue by being able to return here, right here. See that? This return would return the promise, and so that this outer then would come back with a nested promise, right? So what it would allow you to do is to move this then from inside of here, move it outside, and put it over here. Okay, right? This is slightly better to read. Okay, but it's definitely better than having several of these nested clauses inside, right? It will especially happen to you when you have like a many-to-many relationship, right? Where you have to update a parent-child relationship over here that depends on another parent-child relationship, right? That you have to wait before you update one before you update the other, right? And when you have all these dependencies, right, you're going to have lots of these nested calls, right? I mean, update this, and then once that's updated, I'm going to update that, right? And once I remove this, I also have to remove all these other things, right? Okay? And when you have all these dependencies, you're going to have a lot of these nested things. And so then you're going to come back and say, ooh, thank God we have these promises that allow you to write it straight as opposed to all these indentations. So if we run this, right, we get the same behavior. Right? But now it's guaranteed that we don't have the race condition. All right? So always careful with those race conditions. Right? We'll come back to it a little later. Okay, let's continue. So we have update. We also have remove, obviously. Let's move this over here. Let's comment this out. So let's remove this then over here. So we can say remove blog post. So this could be remove or delete by ID, and typically delete functions just take the ID of the element that you want to remove, right? And here, oh, I removed that. Why did I remove it? Let's copy it back. There it is. So notice that we're going to remove a blog post, the last one, and then we're going to do a find. We're going to do a find right after we remove it, and then we're going to display all the posts. So this is actually, we're going to find all of them, right? Find all blog posts, right? And we're not going to take any arguments. Right, so we're going to see that 789 blog post 789 is going to be gone, right? And we're going to display over here. Only to make this a little bit easier to read, I'm going to remove the errors. Okay, that hopefully is a little bit easier to read. Yes? Right, and this is going to be all the posts over here. So we're going to remove. So let's run that. Oh, we never implemented it. Let's implement it, right? So the function is going to be right here, function delete, and it's going to take the ID, post ID. And it's going to be implemented with the block model dot remove, and it takes as argument the ID, the criteria by which we want to remove that. So ID, post ID, and it's going to return that promise, which is going to be a status that we're going to ignore for now, right? Or we can print it, I guess. Status. Okay, and then we're going to print the blog posts. Okay, so if we run that, notice that The last one is 687, right? 789 has been removed from the blog post. Is no longer there. And is no longer here, right? The 678 is the last one. Everybody okay? All right. And so we've created a set of APIs, right, that would allow us to manipulate the blog post entities, right, or domain objects from a service layer, right? And that's what we're going to be looking at now, right? How do we integrate this with a service layer so that it can be called eventually from an Angular mean stack application? All right, and we'll do that next.